Your boy Joe, I'm here to read Moby Dick and play Minecraft, probably at the same time. If you're not here for Moby Dick and Minecraft, you're in the wrong class. You need to look at your syllabus and figure out where you need to be. Okay, so let's see. We're gonna open up the Twitch pop-out chat here. Welcome Adam78. Hey, good to see you, buddy. Meanwhile, we're gonna open up the YouTube chat. We got 3 chats going. We got the YouTube chat, we got the Discord chat, we got the Twitch chat. We're dragging the Twitch chat over here. Okay, let's... This Gatorade is obstructing my view. It's gone. It's out of here. Bye, Gatorade. I'll hydrate on some... I don't know what they call them. Electrolytes. We can get some big electrolytes later. Whatever. Okay. Electrolytes. Oh, it's Greek. Sorry, I didn't know how to pronounce that. I'm not a scholar. Okay. Anyway, we're going to go over here to YouTube. Oh, good. The chapter name's wrong. Oh, good. It says chapters 36 and 36. Yes, let's read both chapters 36. Oh, yeah, once again. Oh, boy. I'm such an educated fella. Okay, right. So we're going to go in here. Update titles. Chapter 35 and 36. Yeah, you can refresh that if you want to not complain. Whatever. Hey, Leaf the Viking, welcome. It's your first time talking here. Cool, good for you. I talk here all the time. Why is my face the wrong size? Okay, we're fixing that. We're coming in hot tonight. We just had some hot chicken with our guest. We'll talk more about our guest later. Okay. What else we got here? Okay, is the actual stream live on YouTube? Peppa Basenji's here. Iconic anemone is here. Iconic anemone. Iconic anemone. Hey, I'm pretty sure that's not the official Minecraft account, so we're gonna ban them for impersonation real quick. Yeah, let's next problem that. If you have an identity, it shouldn't be something owned by Microsoft. If you show up and your identity is Windows 95, you're gonna get banned because you are not Windows 95. This is the theme of the Iron Giant. Go watch it. Okay, here we go. Let's see. We're going to switch this over to here to live chat. Okay, what do we got? We got a lot going on here. Hey, Rex. Hope you're doing well. Welcome, Borealis Laura. Welcome, Big Ecto. Okay, whatever we got. What else we got? We got to go and we got to load up the Project Gutenberg of Moby Dick or the Whale by Erman Melville. Where's that? Okay, what is that? Hey, Chapter 35, The Masthead. There's a good URL. We're going to go ahead and we're going to post that URL in a place that people can appreciate it to appreciate things. Also, speaking of appreciating things, hey, we got a lot going on over here. It was not cheap. Tips are welcome via paypal.me/showhills and YouTube Super Chat if you want to support me. I just spent a lot of money at the Guitar Center today. Can you see this? No, it's in slot 9. You can't see it. This was not cheap. What else? What else we got? We got this. This is also not cheap. We got 3 of these. We got a lot of this stuff. We got a lot of stuff. Monday night. We got a big stream in here Monday night. Groundbreaking stream in here Monday night. I just spent $350 at the Guitar Center. Maybe not that much. I don't know. Where's the receipt? Sorry. Yeah, no. I spent $300 plus tax, so $325. $325 at the Guitar Center to set up for Monday night stream. We got a big Monday night stream coming up. We had to buy some new tech for it. We got the new tech in here. It's not installed. Got a bunch of new cables, got a new bunch of boxes, got a bunch of things that connect to boxes, to connect to cables, to connect to other stuff. This is going to be a brilliant studio of the future. We're going to bring in a new age here. Because this one sucks. Hey, everybody, you like the age you're in? Well, good news. We're throwing that ring into Mount Doom, and we're bringing in the next stage. Let's go. Alrighty. So. This concludes my demonstration of the noise you're supposed to make when you putter around the house. People say, hey, my husband's always puttering around the house. And I'm like, if he's not making that noise, he's not puttering. He's just not being very effective. Okay, here we go. You got to do that noise while you're trying to figure out what you're doing. Okay, that's puttering. Putter better. Okay, here we go. What do we got next? We got to read chapter 35 of Moby Dick. So we need to post some links. What we're reading, eh? Moby Dick. Why is this link not copying? It's not pasting. There's 2 things that are failing here. We don't need all these things failing. 21 Brosjek says, you okay, my dude? No! Honestly, it always infuriates me. People ask, hey, are you okay? And then they expect the answer to not be, no! Like, they freak out. They freak out if you're like, no! But like, hey, if I was okay, would you be asking? Would you be asking? If I looked okay, would you be asking, hey, man, you okay? You can't live your life intruding into the lives of others and then not expect the lives of others to snap back. Boisterous Dave has a much better question. Boisterous Dave says, how is this day treating you, mate? It's a pretty good day, Boisterous Dave. I just had some hot chicken. I just went and bought some cool equipment for my studio. Before that, I had a hamburger. It's a new German food they're bringing over here now. You might have seen it in the Popeye cartoon. That Wimpy really likes them. I hear that the Archie in the Jughead cartoon, no, scratch that, reverse it. The Jughead in the Archie cartoon really likes them. Anyway. Rex sucks at stuff. I don't think I'm doing... this is not how Italians talk at all. I don't think that I'm doing Italian. I don't know anybody from Italy, but I don't think they talk like this. That would be a stupid thing to assume. Okay. So here we go. Are we peeking? Are we peeking on the... okay, let's maybe adjust that a little bit. We've got to be able to see these levels and not have the mic blown out when we're actually reading 35 here. Chapter 35, The Masthead. ProjectGutenberg.org. Well, actually, it's just www.gutenberg.org/PapaGolf2701/images.html link to Hotel Charlie Hotel 0035. Okay, let's go. Chapter 35, The Masthead. It was during the more pleasant weather that in due rotation with other seamen, my first masthead came round. In most American whalemen, the mastheads are manned almost simultaneously with the vessels leaving her port, even though she may have 15,000 miles and more to sail ere reaching her proper cruising ground. And if after a 3, 4, or 5 years' voyage she is drawing nigh home with anything empty in her, say an empty vial even, then her mastheads are kept manned to the last, and not till her skysail pulls in among the spires of the port does she altogether relinquish the hope of capturing one whale more. Now, as the business of standing mastheads, ashore or afloat, is a very ancient and interesting one, let us in some measure expatiate here. I take it that the earliest standards of the mastheads were the old Egyptians, because in all my researches I find none prior to them. For though their progenitors, the builders of Babel, must doubtless by their tower have intended to rear the loftiest masthead in all Asia, or Africa either, yet ere the final truck was put to it, as that great stone mast of theirs may be said to have gone by the board, in the dread gale of God's wrath. Therefore, we cannot give these Babel builders priority over the Egyptians. And what the Egyptians were a nation of masthead standers, that's an assertion based upon the general belief among archaeologists that the first pyramids were founded for astronomical purposes, a theory singularly supported by the peculiar stair formation of all 4 sides of these edifices, whereby, with prodigious long upliftings of their legs, those old astronomers were wont to mount to the apex and sing out for new stars, even as the lookouts of modern ship sing out for a sail or a whale. just bearing in sight. In St. Stylites, the famous Christian hermit of old times, who built him a lofty stone pillar in the desert, and spent the whole latter portion of his life on its summit, hoisting his food from the ground with a tackle. In him we have remarkable instance of a dauntless stander of mastheads, who was not to be driven from his place by fog or frost, rain, hail, or sleet, but valiantly facing everything out to the last, literally died at his post. Of modern standards of mastheads, we have but a lifeless set. Mere stone, iron, and bronze men who, though well capable of facing out a stiff gale, are still entirely incompetent to the business of singing out upon discovering any strange sight. There is Napoleon, who upon the top of the column of Vendôme stands with his arms folded, some 150 feet in the air, careless now. Who rules the decks below? Whether Louis Philippe, Louis Blanc, or Louis the Devil. Great Washington, too, stands high aloft on his tower and mainmast in Baltimore, and, like one of Hercules' pillars, his column marks that point of human grandeur beyond which few mortals will go. Admiral Nelson, also on a capstan of gunmetal, stands his masthead in Trafalgar Square, and ever when most obscured by that London smoke, token is yet given that a hidden hero is there. For where there is smoke must be fire. But neither Great Washington, nor Napoleon, nor Nelson will answer a single hail from below, however madly invoked to befriend by their counsels the distracted decks upon which they gaze, however it may be surmised that their spirits penetrate through the thick haze of the future, and descry what shoals and rocks must be shunned. It may seem unwarrantable to couple, in any respect, the masthead standards of the land with those of the sea, but that in truth it is not so, is plainly evinced by an item for which Obed Macy, the sole historian of Nantucket, stands accountable. The worthy Obed tells us that in the early times of the whale fishery, airships were regularly launched in pursuit of the game. The people of that island erected lofty spars along the seacoast, to which the lookouts ascended by means of nailed cleats, something as fowls go upstairs in a henhouse. A few years ago, this same plan was adopted by the Bay whalemen of New Zealand, who, upon destroying their game, gave notice to the ready-mannered boats nigh the beach. But this custom has now become obsolete. Turn we then to the proper masthead, that of a whale ship at sea. The three. mastheads are kept manned from sunrise to sunset, the seamen taking their regular turns as at the helm and relieving each other every 2 hours. In the severe weather of the tropics, in the serene weather of the tropics, it is exceedingly pleasant, the masthead. Nay, to a dreamy, meditative man, it is delightful. There you stand, 100 feet above the silent decks, striding along the deep, as if the masts were gigantic stilts, while beneath you, and between your legs, as it were, swims the hugest monsters of the sea. Even as ships once sailed between the boots of the famous Colossus at Old Rhodes. There you stand, lost in the infinite series of the sea, with nothing ruffled but the waves. The tranced ship indolently rolls, the drowsy trade winds blow. Everything resolves you into languor. For the most part, in this tropic whaling life, a sublime uneventfulness invests you. You hear no news. You read no gazettes. Extras with startling accounts of commonplaces never delude you into unnecessary excitements. You hear of no domestic affections or afflictions, bankrupt securities, fall of stocks, are never troubled with the thought of what you shall have for dinner. For all your meals for 3 years and more are snugly stowed in casks, and your bill of fare is immutable. In one of those southern whalesmen, on a long 3 or 4 years voyage, as often happens, the sum of the various hours you spend at the masthead would amount to several months. And it is much to be deplored that the place to which you devote so considerable a portion of the whole term of your natural life should be so sadly destitute of anything approaching to a cozy inhabitiveness, or adapted to breed a comfortable localness of feeling, such as pertains to a bed, a hammock, a hearse, a sentry box, a pulpit, a coach, or any other of those small and snug contrivances in which men temporarily isolate themselves. Your most usual point of perch is the head of the topgallant mast, where you stand upon 2 thin, parallel sticks, almost peculiar to whalemen, called the gallant cross trees. Here, tossed about the sea, the beginner feels about as cozy as he would standing on a bull's horns. To be sure, in cold weather, you may carry your house aloft with you in the shape of a watch coat, but properly speaking, the thickest watch coat is no more of a house than the unclad body. For as the soul is glued inside of its fleshy tabernacle, and cannot freely move about in it, nor even move out of it without running great risk of perishing, like an ignorant pilgrim crossing the snowy Alps in winter. So, a watch coat is not so much of a house as it is a mere envelope, or an additional skin encasing you. You cannot put a chest of drawers in your body. No more can you make a convenient closet of your watch coat. Concerning all this, it is much to be deplored that the mastheads of a southern whale ship are unprovided with those enviable little tents or pulpits called crow's nests, in which the lookouts of Greenland whalers are protected from the inclement weather of the frozen seas. In the fireside narrative of Captain Sleet, entitled A Voyage Among the Icebergs in Quest of the Greenland Whale, and incidentally for the rediscovery of lost Icelandic colonies of old Greenland. In this admirable volume, all standers of mastheads are furnished with a charmingly circumstantial account of the then recently invested crow's nest of the glacier, which was the name of Captain Sleet's good craft. He called it Sleet's crow's nest, in honor of himself, he being the original inventor and patentee, and free from all ridiculous false delicacy, and holding that if we call our own children after our own names, we being fathers, the original inventors and patentees, so likewise should we denominate after ourselves any other apparatus we may beget. In shape, the Sleet's crow's nest is something like a large tierce or pipe. It is open above, however, where it is furnished with a movable side screen to keep windward of your head in a hard gale. Being fixed on the summit of the mast, you ascend into it through a little trap hatch on the bottom. On the after side, or side next to the stern of the ship, is a comfortable seat with a locker underneath for umbrellas, comforters, and coats. In front is a leather rack in which to keep your speaking trumpet, pipe, telescope, and other nautical conveniences. When Captain Sleet stood in person at the masthead in this crow's nest of his, he tells us he always had a rifle with him, also fixed in the rack. Together with a powder flask and shot, for the purpose of popping off stray narwhals or vagrant sea unicorns infesting those waters. For you cannot successfully shoot at them from the deck, owing to the resistance of the water. But to shoot down upon them. But to shoot down upon them is a very different thing. Welcome, No Leaf Clover LP Raiders. My name is Joe Hills. I'm broadcasting live from Nashville, Tennessee. You are joining us as we are harvesting ice from these ice trays, which I have constructed as part of my large-scale Hermit Home Dell build. We're going to go get hit by that firework. Or this one. This is, once again, a large-scale build. Let's go ahead and fly up for a minute here. And then we'll switch camera views. The outer oval of the belt road is 900 blocks on the major diameter. The minor diameter of the oval is 600 blocks. We have already placed thousands of frog lights, removed over 1 million stone, and we now are gathering 11 shulkers of packed ice. By gathering ice from those ice trays and then combining them in an autocrafter of my own devising, in order to make packed ice without accidentally making blue ice to ice. Our pal Cubfan has been working on a labyrinth over here as well. He is our first kind of resident artist for this project. Angel Bun VT, welcome to everyone from Vermont who has decided to join us today. We are currently flying over Hermit Home Dell. I was just explaining why I built these ice trays over here. This building, marked out in the center here, was the Bell Research and Development's laboratory, designed by Eero Saarinen as the largest mirrored glass building in the world at the time. It was 1/4 mile long, and there's no good way to properly make mirrored glass in Minecraft. Looking at photos of Saarinen's building, however, I realized that the building was designed to reflect the sky and be seen from below. So, I thought, what does a reflected sky look like in Minecraft? And I realized that that's probably ice blocks. Packed ice doesn't melt, though. It's not quite as good as using ice blocks, but it's a start. So, we are currently doing our Saturday tradition of finding the grindiest work to be done in Minecraft and pursuing that grind while we read from a public domain novel. Last season, when we were working on the grind for a pinball machine, we read all of Dracula, start to finish, over the course of about a year. This season, as we work on the Bell Laboratories Research and Development Facility over there, we are reading Herman Melville's Moby Dick, or The Whale. I selected this novel because though it is not technically a science fiction work, I think it most clearly anticipates the concept of Wikipedia of any book that I've ever seen from the 1840s or 1850s. Allow me to take a sip of my drink. Let me also remind folks, if you're enjoying the show, tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. We are currently $20 away from our first face camera expansion milestone. All right. Where was I? So, we are currently on chapter 35 of Moby Dick. We just kind of took a break in the middle. This is actually one of the chapters that I point at repeatedly when I try to explain what Moby Dick is. Because I'll be like, okay, so they'll be like, now that we've left shore, so Moby Dick is a guy trying to tell a story, but he keeps getting distracted by like looking stuff up about what he's trying to tell you on Wikipedia. Okay, so this guy Ishmael is trying to tell you a story about the time he holding Caulfield so hard that he had to go to sea to get away from all the phonies on a whaling vessel, right? And there's a lot of the Catcher in the Rye in this book. If you wanna see Holden Caulfield, if you ever read Catcher in the Rye and you're like, man, it's a shame this guy didn't try to do more to separate himself from these people. Boy, you'll love Ishmael. Because Ishmael hates everybody, and he's like, they're all a bunch of phonies. I'm going to go on a whaling vessel because that's where real humanity is, and it goes poorly. Um, Thank you very much to Emily for the kind words, who says, love your videos, and then has some other stuff to share that's not for reading on the stream. But thank you for sharing a part of your evening and your experience with me. I'm glad you enjoyed my work, and I appreciate you supporting the arts and my work in particular. So thank you, Emily, for our first tip of the stream. That puts us 15 away from the next face camera expansion milestone. Tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. Howdy, Audrey Holt. Howdy there, bird. That's not a good name. Like, if your name is clearly derived from another hermit's name, you're probably going to get banned. Like, if your name is Zombie Cleo Lover, I'm going to ban you because I don't want to have to clarify that I'm not talking to Zombie Cleo, right? Every time. Like, you need to have your own identity separate from me and my friends. Like, sometimes people are like, man, do you get really creeped out by weird parasocial stuff? And I was like, no, most of that's not actually as weird or creepy as you want, but some of it's annoyingly inconvenient. People copying my friends' names is just annoyingly inconvenient enough that I have to ban you for it. Please don't do that. Just, Skizzleman is a brilliant comedian. I see why you like him. But you need to be yourself. You can't be him. You can't, like, if you define your identity around him, we're going to have a problem. Okay. So, where were we? We are in the middle of chapter 35, talking about the mastheads. So, he starts off trying to describe what doing masthead duty on his ship is like. But he is now distracted by describing the recent invention of the crow's nest by Captain Sleep. And he's talking about Captain Sleep's ship, the Glacier. So, let's go hop back over to your boy, Ishmael. Now, it was plainly a labor of love for Captain Sleep to describe, as he does, all the little detailed conveniences of his crow's nest. But though he so enlarges upon many of these, and though he treats us to a very scientific account of his experiments in this crow's nest, with a small compass he kept there for the purpose of counteracting the errors resultant from what he called the local attraction of all binnacle magnets, an error ascribable to the horizontal vicinity of the iron in the ship's planks, and in the Glacier's case perhaps to there having been so many broken down blacksmiths among her crew. I say that though the captain is very discreet and scientific here, yet for all his learned binnacle deviations, azimuth compass observations, and approximate errors, he knows very well, Captain Sleep, that he was not so much immersed in those profound magnetic meditations as to fail being attracted occasionally toward that well-replenished little case bottle, so nicely tucked in on one side of his crow's nest, within easy reach of his hand. Though upon the whole, I greatly admire and even love the brave and honest and learned captain, yet I take it very ill of him that he should so utterly ignore that case bottle, seeing what a faithful friend and comforter it must have been while with mittened fingers and hooded head. He was studying the mathematics aloft there in that bird's nest, within 3 or 4 perches of the pole. But if we southern whale fishers are not so snugly housed aloft as Captain Sleet and as his Greenland men were, yet that disadvantage is greatly counterbalanced by the widely contrasted serenity of those seductive seas in which we South Fishers mostly float. For one, I used to lounge up the rigging very leisurely, resting in the top to have a chat with Queequeg or anyone else off duty whom I might find there, and then ascending a little way further and throwing a lazy leg over the topsail yard, take a preliminary view of the watery pastures, and so at last mount to my ultimate destination. Let me make a clean breast of it here. Frankly, I should admit that I kept, but sorry guard, with the problem of the universe revolving in me. How could I, being left completely to myself at such a thought-engendering altitude, how could I but lightly hold my obligation to observe all whale ships' standing orders? Keep your weather eye open and sing out every time. And let me, in this place, movingly admonish you, ye ship owners of Nantucket, beware of enlisting in your vigilant fisheries any lad with lean brow and hollow eye, given to unseasonable meditativeness. And who offers to ship with the fade on instead of the bowditch in his head. Beware of such one, I say. Your whales must be seen before they can be killed, and this sunken-eyed young Platonist will tow you 10 wakes round the world and never make you 1 pint of sperm the richer. Nor are these monitions at all unheeded, for nowadays the whale fishery furnishes an asylum for many romantic, melancholy, and absent-minded young men, disgusted with the carking cares of earth and seeking sediment and sentiment in tar and blubber. Childe Harold not infrequently perches himself upon the masthead of some luckless, disappointed whale ship, and, in moody phrase, ejaculates, "Roll on, thou deep and dark blue ocean. Roll." 10,000 blubber hunters sweep over thee in vain. Very often, Do the captains of such ships take these absent-minded young philosophers to task, upbraiding them with not feeling sufficient interest in the voyage, half hinting that they are so hopelessly lost to all honorable ambition as that in their secret souls they would rather not see whales than otherwise. But all in vain. These young Platonists have a notion that their vision is imperfect. They are short-sighted. What use, then, to strain the visual nerve? They have left their opera glasses at home.
Why, thou monkey,
said a harpooner to one of these lads,
we've been cruising now hard upon 3 years, and thou hast not raised a whale yet. Whales are scarce as hen's teeth whene'er thou art up there.
Perhaps they were. Or perhaps there might have been shoals of them in the far horizon, but lulled into such an opium-like listlessness of vacant, unconscious reverie is this absent-minded youth. By the blending cadence of waves with thoughts, that at last he loses his identity, takes the mystic ocean at his feet for the visible image of that deep, blue, bottomless soul, pervading mankind and nature and every strange, half-seen, gliding, beautiful thing that eludes him. Every dimly discovered uprising fin of some undiscernible form seems to him the embodiment of those elusive thoughts that only people the soul by continually flitting through it. In this enchanted mood, thy spirit ebbs away to whence it came, becomes diffused through time and space, like Cranmer's sprinkled pantheistic ashes, forming at last a part of airy shore, the globe round o'er. There is no life in thee now, except that rocking life imparted by a gently rolling ship, by her borrowed from the sea, by the sea, from the inscrutable tides of God. But while this sleep, this dream is on ye, move your foot or hand an inch, slip your hold at all, and your identity comes back in horror. O'er Descartian vortices you hover, and perhaps at midday, in the fairest weather, with one half-throttled shriek, you drop through that transparent air into the summer sea, no more to rise forever. Heed it well, ye pantheists. And that concludes chapter 35, The Masthead of Moby Dick, or The Whale, by Herman Melville. Anybody have any thoughts about the masthead? I think it's interesting that one part of this chapter is written like somebody very excitedly looking at their phone, and one part of this chapter is written like a hypnosis video where he's like, imagine yourself suspended over the deck of the ship. And he's like describing the experience of standing the masthead in a way that's like, it's like an ASMR script or something almost. I don't know if I'm using that word right, but it seems like it's a weird mashup. Gusty Gale says, ASMR hypnotic induction of moody blubber hunters go. Alicia Capisha says, your reading voice is amazing. Do you do anything to practice? This is the practice. Every Saturday night I read a book. I started about a year and a half ago with Dracula. No, this is the practice. One day I want to do this like in a more methodical, intentional way. This is reading practice. You're witnessing practice. My friend Art Frederick, who worked with me on Pitfalls and Penguins, says that the definition of doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is practice. I'm sure if you went back to those early Dracula readings, I might not be quite as good as I am today. But I wasn't terrible. I used to read out loud when I was in school. My teachers liked calling on me to read things out loud, especially in foreign language classes. I was good at pronunciation even when my comprehension wasn't great. So I read a lot of South American and Mexican fiction in high school out loud during class. So got to read a lot of really cool Realismo Fantastico stories. Even though I had to have somebody explain to them later what they meant. Or explain to me later what they meant. Centauratron says, the Harpooner at the end mentioned we've been cruising now hard upon 3 years. Did Melville jump 2 years of the journey, or is this mention of a different journey? That is about a different journey. Or the same journey, but fast-forwarded. That's unclear. But we are about to be back at We've Just Left Port. We're about to be just after Ahab admonished one of his officers. But first we need to say, howdy, Scar. The next chapter is very different. The quarterdeck is the next chapter. So we need to update what we're reading. I'm not ready to go in and read another chapter yet. This is also the difference between me and a professional. Is like a professional book on tape reader or whatever can just do this nonstop. Whereas I take a lot of breaks, right? I don't have I might not have terrible talent at this. I think I'm an okay reader. But I do make just enough mistakes that I couldn't be a professional. And I haven't built up the endurance to be a professional. One day I think it would be really interesting to do this sort of work for money. I mean, I guess arguably I'm doing it for money now, but we've been at this for almost an hour and I've made $5. So currently I'm doing this for less than minimum wage. So that's, you know what I mean. Anyway, tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. We are currently $15 away from our first face camera expansion milestone. If you enjoy the stream, feel free to support it. I wasn't joking earlier. I spent a lot of money today on equipment to upgrade the studio for having in-studio guests. That's also going to help me with certain stuff I do on the road. So this is a solid investment that I've been intending to make for a while. But we're gonna have several in studio. Well, okay. I need to clarify. We're gonna have one in studio guest and several in studio audience members on Monday night, and so I'm very excited about that. Dun, 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 dun. Bum, 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 bum. Let's lay our heads down and dream. Hey, we got a new Patreon patron. Just so you know, I send out those invites once per business day in a batch. Sundays arguably could be a business day. I'll try and get that out to you tomorrow. But yeah, I don't send out those invites during the streams because I'm busy reading Moby Dick. But thank you very much to our latest Patreon patron joining us at the $10 level. I don't name the people when we get Patreon signups during the stream because sometimes the names people use for their Patreon accounts, they don't want linked to their other accounts. But I did see that roll in. Very excited. Yeah, $10 a month will get you access to the Minecraft servers. I saw a message from Toxic just before our Vault Hunter server operator. There's apparently some sort of problem with the auto restart earlier today. I haven't been at my computer. Well, so my streaming computer is not my server administration computer. I'm at my streaming computer now, but I wasn't at my laptop. I didn't see that roll in until right before the stream, and then there wasn't time to get it fixed. But I will look into that too. Okay, cool. So you do use the same name for both Twitch and that. So yeah, Adam78, thank you for understanding. Looking forward to having you. A lot of people, they're like, I was worried about, I figured it would be a bunch of strangers, but then I realized it's all the same people that are here all the time in the Twitch chat. So it's like, oh, this is nice. So yeah, I am excited. I will get you that invite within the next day. There's certain ways you can automate these invite processes, but believe me, they're not as secure as just having a human do it. And so, like, people ask me, like, Joe, didn't you used to work with computers full time? Why are you nervous about having computers do stuff for you? And I'm like, because I worked with computers. They're not reliable. My whole job was figuring out why they broke constantly in new and surprising ways. Yeah. It's like people are like, but people be like, oh, you love computers. How come you don't have an Alexa or a Siri or whatever? It's like, because I know how computers work. Oh, you don't, yeah. Adam78 says former PC tech, can't agree. A lot of, I think the difference between a junior position and a senior position is the wisdom to determine what should be automated and what should be done by hand. And that is not always intuitive. That is the sort of thing you learn through hard-won experience. Yeah, you learn a lot by doing. Okay. Whew. I'm looking around. Okay. So we don't really have a lot of questions or comments about that chapter of Moby Dick. We're about to read the next chapter, and I'm realizing a few things. Well, how long is this chapter? It's not. It's kind of long. So I had hot chicken earlier, and my nasal passages are like kind of getting like drippy, and I can't find the tissue box that's usually in here. I don't know if maybe I emptied it and threw it away. And I also need to move my laundry along. Normally, if we put up the hydration break sign, that means we're about to play some music, but we don't do that during the Moby Dick streams because we can't risk having the copyright strike. Hey, Lost Cult Music, thank you for the 3. That's our second tip of the stream. That gets us 12 away from our first face camera expansion milestone. Yeah. So we're going to put the hydration break sign up. I'm going to go get a box of tissues from another room and move my laundry along. I'm not quite ready to refill my drink, but maybe I'll go top that off too. So, yeah, once again, normally we would put on music, but we don't risk music during the Moby Dick streams. I got to say, whatever new algorithms YouTube is using for music recognition, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. So, yeah. We got to save our VODs. No music. I will be back in as long as it takes me to find a tissue box and move my laundry. Let's just say it's 9:27 right now. Let's shoot for 9:32. 5 minutes. Everybody has 5 minutes. Go get a snack. Go get a drink. Go use the restroom. I will be right back. All right. So that's been 4 minutes. I said 5. So we're gonna resume. The ice is loading in nicely. See, this is the thing, is I like the ice tray because it's a good BRB thing, right? We can come back and the ice will have spread, right? That's a legitimate way to make progress on our build. Okay, hydration break concluded. Let's take down the sign. It is now 9:32. I said 5 minutes. It's been 5 minutes. I have got the tissue box. A block game. Must block everything. Tissue blocks. Oh my gosh. I was gonna say, I got the tissue box to get my nose unblocked. And we got the pickaxe here to go ahead and gather some of this ice. It'll be real nice. Okay. So, let's do a quick preamble to Chapter 36. I'd like to point out that we just had a weird self-hypnosis slash Wikipedia chapter in Chapter 35. In Chapter 32, we had a weird, I'm gonna tier rank all the whales forum post chapter. We've had a lot of strange, there's only one bed fanfiction chapters that opened out the book. Chapter 36 is arguably the beginning of the story? It's hard to say. Arguably, the next chapter, the chapter we're about to read, is where Melville explains what the book intends to be. Once again, you might think, hey, maybe Chapter 36 is a little bit late to explain to everyone what this book is about. You might think that. But yeah, maybe that's just your modern point of view. Maybe that was completely normal back then. It was not. This is a weird book. And in some ways, the next chapter is one of the most normal chapters about it, because this is the sort of chapter that in another book would have happened way earlier. This is the chapter that explains to the viewer, or the reader, or whatever, the storytellee, what the story is about. Because the early chapters, which are basically just Ishmael holding Caulfielding it up and complaining about people being phonies and talking about how great Queequeg and Wailing are like not advancing the plot, really, right? Like, the glacial pace of the plot nicely complements what we're doing over here with our crafter. So that's fun and thematic, but there's a lot of choices. Melville made choices with this book. It's one of the things that makes it interesting to talk about. Chapter 36 would be basically, I would say, like, if you were making a depiction of this story in film in the 1970s, Chapter 36 might be the end of Act 1. If you're doing it these days, this would be one of the first scenes in the entire film. They would have had, like, the movie would have opened with, "What up? It's your boy Ishmael. Hey, I had to share a hotel room with this guy Queequeg, and he doesn't look like me, but that's cool. He's cool anyway. You know, I'm a Protestant, so I try to be charitable. Anyway, so me and Queequeg, we just got on the ship, and it seems like everything's going pretty well. But then, oh boy, you won't believe what the captain does. Right when we're leaving the port, practically." Chapter 36 occurs not very far into their voyage. It's a 3-year voyage. Chapter 36 takes place a few weeks after they leave port, but before they reach their cruising grounds. So basically, with a ship like this, until they reach the cruising grounds, it's all kind of shakedown. It's just, you know, the crew getting to know the ship, getting to know each other, that sort of thing, right? So they haven't reached the area that they're actually properly working yet. And they're on their way there. And Ahab comes in. And, well, I guess you'll see. But, once again, this is an interesting chapter because it's so normal compared to so many of the other chapters. But it's also interesting that Melville chose to place this 36 chapters in. He could have put this next chapter before all the stuff about when people eat. He could have put this stuff... He could have... Basically, he could have had this scene take place as soon as they leave port, right? As soon as the 2 other captains, Bildad and I'm blanking on his name, leave the Pequod to go back to Nantucket. This scene could have taken place, but it doesn't. It doesn't take place until now, and that's a choice. And Ken Dreadful says, "But where would he have put cetology?" But that's what I'm saying, is like so many people start reading this book and are like, I couldn't get past cetology. And it's like, even if they got past cetology, they get to this crow's nest stuff in the previous chapter. And, like, okay, so there's a thing that I'm reminded of here. That, like, cult leaders will intentionally try to drive away people who don't 100% agree with their vision. And, like, scammers will do the same thing. Like scammers will have really bad typos in, like, the subject line of their post. Because they're like, anybody who would recognize typos in this post isn't going to fall for my scam anyway. Like, they're filtering out people. They're like, this isn't... If you care that I misspelled 8 words in the opening sentence of this email, you're not my mark anyway. So, I feel like Melville was kind of saying, like, look, I have a story to tell you here. But if you're not gonna like cetology, you need to check out before the plot really begins. Because you're not gonna want to sit through this stuff and my plot, right? I feel like he intentionally... This next chapter is a sudden veer back toward normalcy in storytelling. That is very interestingly timed in terms of the pacing of the book. So I want you all to kind of pay attention. Because I think when we read this chapter, you guys will... I think what I'm saying here isn't out of line. This is not me saying, like, I'm on the fence about this. It's like, I'm certain about this. This was a choice, and this was an interesting choice. But I'm also interested to hear your insights into what you think about whether it was effective or not. Well, Centauratron, the thing is, I think that's one of the reasons he put the relationship between Ishmael and Queequeg at the beginning of the book. Because he wanted to tell people, if you aren't comfortable reading about how one man's modern Protestant interpretation of charity toward the uncivilized peoples of other continents could become manifest in this way, then you should put this book down right now. Because you're not going to like the middle and you're not going to like the end. That's what I'm saying is he was establishing who the book was for before he really started the book. Right? The first few chapters were basically him saying, you can just walk away from this. That's an option you have. Okay. So, chapter 36. The quarterdeck. Of Moby Dick or the Whale by Herman Melville. Enter Ahab, then all. It was not a great while after the affair of the pipe that one morning, shortly after breakfast, Ahab, as was his wont, ascended the cabin gangway to the deck. There, most sea captains will usually walk that hour as country gentlemen, after the same meal, take a few turns in the garden. Soon, his steady ivory stride was heard as to and fro he paced his old rounds upon planks so familiar to his tread that they were all over-dented, like geological stones, with the peculiar mark of his walk. Did you fixedly gaze too upon that ribbed and dented brow? There, also, you would see still stranger footprints, the footprints of his one unsleeping, ever-pacing thought. But on the occasion in question, those dents looked deeper, even as his nervous step that morning left a deeper mark. And so full of his thoughts was Ahab that at every uniform turn that he made, now at the mainmast and now at the binnacle, you could almost see that thought turn in him as he turned, and pace in him as he paced, so completely possessing him, indeed, that it all but seemed the inward mold of every outer movement. "Do you mark him, Flask?" whispered Stubb. "The chick that's in him pecks the shell. 'Twill soon be out." The hours wore on. Ahab, now shut up within his cabin, anon, pacing the deck, with the same intense bigotry of purpose in his aspect. It drew near the close of day. Suddenly, he came to a halt by the bulwarks, and inserting his bone leg into the auger hole there, and with one hand grasping a shroud, he ordered Starbuck to send everybody aft. "Sir!" said the mate, astonished at an order seldom or never given on shipboard, except in some extraordinary case. "Send everybody aft," repeated Ahab. "Mastheads, there, come down." When the entire ship's company were assembled, and with curious and not wholly unapprehensive faces were eyeing him, for he looked not unlike the weather horizon when a storm is coming up. Ahab, after rapidly glancing over the bulwarks, then darting his eyes among the crew, started from his standpoint, and as though not a soul were nigh him, resumed his heavy turns upon the deck. With bent head and half-slouched hat, he continued to pace, unmindful of the wondering whispering among the men, till Stubb cautiously whispered to Flask, Ahab must have summoned them there for the purpose of witnessing a pedestrian feat. But this did not last long. Vehemently pausing, he cried, What do you do when you see a whale, man?
Sing out for him!
Was the impulsive rejoinder from a score of clubbed voices. Good! Cried Ahab, with a wild approval in his tones, observing the hearty animation into which his unexpected question had so magnetically thrown them. And what do you do next, man?
Lower away, and after him!
And what tune is it ye pull to, man?
A dead whale, or a stove boat!
More and more strangely, this fiercely glad and approving grew the countenance of the old man at every shout, while the mariners began to gaze curiously at each other, as if marveling how it was they themselves became so excited at such seemingly purposeless questions. But they were all eagerness again, as Ahab, now half revolving in his pivot hole, with one hand reaching high up a shroud and tightly, almost convulsively grasping it, addressed them thus. All ye mastheaders have before now heard me give orders about a white whale. Look ye, do ye see this Spanish ounce of gold? Holding up a broad, bright coin to the sun. It is a $16 piece, man. Do you see it? Mr. Starbuck, hand me yon top maul. When the mate was getting the hammer, Ahab, without speaking, was slowly rubbing the gold piece against the skirts of his jacket, as if to heighten its luster, and without using any words, was meanwhile lowly humming to himself, producing a sound so strangely muffled and inarticulate that it seemed the mechanical humming of the wheels of his vitality in him. Receiving the top maul from Starbuck, he advanced toward the mainmast with the hammer uplifted in one hand, exhibiting the gold with the other, and with a high raised voice exclaiming, Whosoever ye raises me a white-headed whale with a wrinkled brow and a crooked jaw, whosoever of ye raises me that white-headed whale with 3 holes punctured in his starboard fluky, look ye, whosoever ye raises me that same white whale, he shall have this gold ounce, my boys.
Huzzah! Huzzah!
Cried the seamen, as with swinging tarpaulins they hailed the act of nailing the gold to the mast. It is a white whale, I say, resumed Ahab, as he threw down the topmaul. A white whale. Skin your eyes for him, man. Look sharp for white water. If you see but a bubble, sing out. All this while Tashtego, Dagu, and Queequeg had looked on with even more intense interest and surprise than the rest. And at the mention of the wrinkled brow and crooked jaw, they had startled, as if each was separately touched by some specific recollection.
Captain Ahab,
Said Tashtego.
that white whale must be the same that some call Moby Dick.
Moby Dick! Shouted Ahab. Do ye know the white whale then, Tash?
Does he fantail a little curious, sir, before he goes down?
Said the gray-header deliberately.
And he has a curious spout, too, said Daggoo. Very bushy even for a parmachitty, and mighty quick, Captain Ahab. And he have 1, 2, 3. Oh, good many iron in his hide, too, Captain,
cried Queequeg disjointedly.
I'll twisky-be-twisk, like him.
Faltering hard here for a word and screwing his hand round and round, as though uncorking a bottle.
Like him! Him!
Corkscrew! Cried Ahab. Aye, Queequeg, that harpoon's lie. All twisted and wrenched in him. Aye, Daggoo, his spout is a big one like a whole shock of wheat, and white as a pile of our Nantucket wool after the great annual sheep shearing. Aye, Tashtego, and he fantails like a split jib in a squall. Death and devils, men. It is Moby Dick you've seen. Moby Dick. Moby Dick.
Captain Ahab,
said Starbuck, who, with Stubb and Flask, had thus far been eyeing his superior with increasing surprise, but at last seemed struck with a thought which somewhat explained all the wonder.
Captain Ahab, I have learned of Moby Dick, but was it not Moby Dick that took off thy leg?
Who told thee that? Cried Ahab. Then, pausing, Starbuck, my hearty's all around. It was Moby Dick that dismasted me. Moby Dick that brought me to this dead stump I stand on now. He shouted with a terrific, loud animal sob, like that of a heart-stricken moose. Hey! It was that accursed white whale that raised me, made a poor pagan lubber of me forever and a day. Then, tossing both arms with measureless imprecations, he shouted, "Ah! Ah! And I'll chase him round Good Hope, and round the Horn, and round the Norway Maelstrom, round perdition's flames before I give him up. And this is what you've shipped for, men, to chase that white whale on both sides of land and over all sides of earth till he spouts black blood and rolls fin out. What say you, man? Will you splice hands on it now? I think ye do look brave."
Aye! Aye!
shouted the harpooneers and seamen, running closer to the excited old man.
A sharp eye for the white whale! A sharp, lads, for Moby Dick!
God bless ye! He seemed to half sob and half shout. God bless ye, man. Stored. Go draw the great measure of grog. What's this long face about, Mr. Starbuck? Wilt thou not chase the white whale? Art not game for Moby Dick?
I am game for his crooked jaw, and for the jaws of death too, Captain Ahab. If it fairly comes in the way of the business we follow. But I came here to hunt whales, not my commander's vengeance. How many barrels will thy vengeance yield thee, even if thou gettest it, Captain Ahab? It will not fetch thee much in our Nantucket market.
Nantucket market. But come closer, Starbuck. Thou requirest a little lower layer. If money's to be the measure, man, and the accountants have computed their great counting house, the globe, by girding it with guineas, 1 to every 3 parts an inch, then let me tell thee, thy vengeance, my vengeance, will fetch a great premium here.
He smites the chest, whispered Stubb. What's that for? Methinks it rings more vast, but hollow.
Vengeance on a dumb brute, cried Starbuck,
that simply smote thee from blindest instinct. Madness. To be enraged with a dumb thing, Captain Ahab, seems blasphemous.
Hark ye yet again, the little lower layer. All visible objects, man, are but as pasteboard masks. But in each event, in the living act, the undoubted deed, there some unknown but still reasoning thing puts forth the moldings of its own features from behind the unreasoning mask. If man will strike through the mask, how can the prisoner reach outside except by thrusting through the wall? To me, the white whale is that wall shoved near to me. Sometimes I think there's naught beyond, but 'tis enough. He tasks me, he heaps me. I see in him outrageous strength, with an inscrutable malice sinewing it. That inscrutable thing is chiefly what I hate, and be the white whale agent, or be the white whale principal, I will wreak that hate upon him. Talk not to me about blasphemy, man. I'd strike the sun if it insulted me. Or could the sun do that? Then could I do the other, since there is e'er a sort of fair play herein? Jealousy presiding over all other, jealousy presiding over all creations. But not my master, man, is even that fair play. Who's over me? Truth hath no confines. Take off thine eye. More intolerable than fiends' glarings is a doltish stare. So thou reddenest and palest. My heat has melted thee to anger glow. But look ye, Starbuck, what is said in heat, that thing unsays itself.
There are men from whom warm words are small in dignity. I meant not to incense thee. Let it go. Look. See yonder Turkish cheeks of spotted tawn, living, breathing pictures painted by the sun. The pagan leopards, the unrecking and unworshipping things that live and seek and give no reasons for this torrid life they feel. The crew. Man, the crew! Are they not one and all with Ahab in this matter of the whale? See Stub? He laughs. See yonder Chilean? He snorts to think of it. Stand up amid the general hurricane. Thy one-tossed sapling cannot Starbuck. And what is it? Reckon it. 'Tis but to help strike a fin. No wondrous feat for Starbuck. What is it more from this one poor hunt than the best lance of out of all Nantucket? Surely he will not hang back when every foremast hand has clutched a whetstone. Ah, constrain and seize thee, I say. The billow lifts thee. Speak, but speak. Thy silence then, that voices thee. Something shot from my dilated nostrils. He has inhaled it in his lungs. Starbuck now is mine. Cannot oppose me now without rebellion.
God keep me. Keep us all, murmured Starbuck lowly. But in his joy at the tacit acquiescence of the mate, Ahab did not hear his foreboding invocations, nor yet the low laugh from the hold, nor yet the presaging vibrations of the winds in the cordage. Nor yet the hollow flap of the sails against the masts, as, for a moment, their hearts sank in. For again, Starbuck's downcast eyes lighted up with the stubbornness of life. The subterranean laugh died away, and the winds blew on. The sails filled out. The ship heaved and rolled as before. Ye admonitions and warnings, why stay ye not when ye come? But rather are ye predictions than warnings, ye shadows, yet not so much predictions from without as verifications of the foregoing things within. For with little external to constrain us,
the innermost necessities in our beings. These drive us still on. The measure! The measure! Cried Ahab, receiving the brimming pewter and turning to the harpooneers. He ordered them to produce their weapons. Then, ranging them before him, near the capstan, with their harpoons in their hands, while his 3 mates stood at his side with their lances, and the rest of the ship's company formed a circle around the group. He stood for an instant, searching every member of the crew. But those wild eyes met his, as the bloodshot eyes of the prairie wolves meet the eye of their leader, ere he rushes on at their head in the trail of the bison. But alas, only to fall into the hidden snare of the native. "Drink and pass!" he cried, handing the heavy charged flagon to the nearest seaman. "The crew alone now drink. Round with it, round. Short draughts, long swallows, men. 'Tis hot as Satan's hoof. So it goes round excellently. It spiralizes in ye, forks out at the serpent's snapping eye. Well done, almost drained. That way it went, this way it comes. Hand it to me. Here's a holla. Men, ye seem the years, so brimming life is gulped and gone. Steward, refill! Attend now, my braves. I have mustered ye all round this capstan, and ye mates, flank me with your lances, and ye harpooneers, stand there with your irons, and ye stout mariners, ring me in, that I may in some sort revive a noble custom of my fishermen fathers before me. Oh, man, you will yet see that. Ha, boy, come back. Bad pennies come not sooner. Hand it to me. Why, now this pewter has run brimming again. Wert not thou sight Vitus' imp? Away, thou arg. Advance, ye mates. Cross your lances full before me. Well done. Let me touch the axis. So saying, with extended arm, he grasped the 3 level radiating lances that crossed at their cross center, and, while doing, suddenly and nervously twitched them. Meanwhile, glancing intently from Starbuck to Stub, from Stub to Flask, it seemed as though by some nameless interior volition, he would fain have shocked them into the same fiery emotion accumulated within the Leyden jar of his own magnetic life. The 3 mates quailed before his strong, sustained, and mystic aspect. Stub and Flask looked sideways from him. The honest eye of Starbuck fell downright. "In vain," cried Ahab, "but maybe 'tis well, for did ye 3 but once take the full force shock, then mine own electric thing, that had perhaps expired from out me, perchance too it would have dropped ye dead. perchance ye need it not. Down lances. And now, ye mates, I do appoint ye 3 cup-bearers to my 3 pagan kinsmen there. Yon 3 most honorable gentlemen and noblemen, my valiant harpooneers! Disdain the task? What? When the great Pope washes the feet of beggars, using his tiara for ewer? Oh, my sweet cardinals, your own condescension, that shall bend ye to it. I do not order ye. Ye will it. Cut your seizing. Draw the poles, ye harpooneers! Silently obeying the order, the 3 harpooneers now stood with the detached iron part of their harpoons, some 3 feet long, held barbs up before him. Stab me not with that keen steel. Cant 'em over. Know ye not the goblet end? Turn up the socket. So, now, ye cupbearers, advance. The irons, take 'em, hold 'em, while I fill. Forthwith, slowly going from one officer to the other, he brimmed the harpoon sockets with the fiery waters from the pewter. Now, 3 to 3, you stand. Commend the murderous chalices. Bestow them, ye who are now made parties to the indissoluble league. Ha ha ha! Starbuck! But the deed is done. Yon ratifying sun now waits to sit upon it. Drink, ye harpooneers, drink, and swear, ye men, that man the deathful whaleboat's bow. Death to Moby Dick. God hunt us all if we do not hunt Moby Dick to his death. The long, barbed steel goblets were lifted, and to cries and maledictions against the white whale, the spirits were simultaneously quaffed down with a hiss. Starbuck paled and turned and shivered. Once more and finally, the replenished pewter went the rounds among the frantic crew, when, waving his free hand to them, they all dispersed, and Ahab retired to within his cabin. And thus concludes Chapter 36 of Moby Dick, or The Whale, by Herman Melville. Any initial thoughts and impressions before I start asking leading questions? Also, I'm going to find a quick perch up in this tree just so we don't get pre-purred. We had a couple tips roll in while I was reading that segment. Thank you to Leslie. Wait, this came in 28 minutes ago? How long have I been reading that chapter? Thank you for your patience, Leslie. We were 12 away from the next face camera expansion milestone. That puts us now 5 away. Leslie McCord writes, "Thank you for story time tonight." Oh, okay. I thought we had 2 tips. We only have 1. Is that? Okay. Well, anyway, we're 5 away from our first face camera expansion milestone of the stream. If you have been enjoying this reading, tips are welcome via paypal.me/Joe Hills and YouTube Super Chat. Ken Dreadful says, this is hypnotic.
Ken Dreadful also says, I've never seen Ahab and Dracula in the same room. I decided to bring the Dracula energy into Ahab. I felt like, to some degree, if Ahab is just a grumpy jerk, if he, like, they talk about Ahab being kind of very low energy, but also very anxious. And I was like, you know what? When he's interacting with the crew, he should be charismatic. That anxious energy needs to come into his speech, right? And so I kind of toned it down a little bit when he's having his private conversation with Starbuck. It's still there, but you know, I'm trying to give the character a clear voice, but a voice that represents an understanding of his audience. Ahab is good at manipulating the people around him, and I wanted to try and read this in a way that demonstrated that. And honestly, like, nobody's complained, so I'm going to assume I'm doing okay at it. If you have criticism, I am trying to do these practice streams to learn, but the only reason I don't think I'm completely nailing this right now is that we are 2 hours into the stream and I've made $15. Usually if I've made $15 this far into a stream, that means I've screwed up pretty bad. But like, when I think about how I felt when I was reading that, I feel like I was reading it pretty good. Maybe just, you know, it's the summer and people are traveling or whatever. So I get it. But if I did objectively have room for improvement there, please tell me, because I do want to know. I am trying to do this for practice. P256 says, Dear Joe, I'm a broke college student. I have no money. That's okay. That's okay. Niall Hist says, did you do drama theater in high school? I think I took one drama course. I tried to sign up for a play, but then there were some problems with my parents and the schedule didn't work with theirs, and it was a whole thing. So I never actually got to really do that. I did fill in for somebody at a play on Valentine's Day. My friend Lex was playing Dogberry's assistant in Much Ado About Nothing. And myself and my friend were on a double date. And I didn't have a cell phone yet, but my friend did. And somebody called him and was like, is Joe with you? And he's like, yeah, we're on a double date. It's like, okay, good. He's the only person who can probably fit into Lex's outfit. Lex is incredibly sick right now, and we need somebody to fill in for him on stage. And so, yeah, I played Dogberry's deputy once in a Shakespeare play, but I hadn't rehearsed or learned any of the lines. And so they had the guy who played Dogberry knew both his lines and the deputy's lines. And so we were kind of doing like this weird, what's the two magicians routine where the one of them doesn't talk? We were doing this routine where every time he asked me a question, I would act like I was about to start answering, and then he would do my line. He's like, you think the blah 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 blah. Yeah, like, and then so he was basically cutting me off and reading my own lines. Penn and Teller, yeah, kind of like a Penn and Teller type of bit. Hey, Lost Cult Music Tip 7 says, lots of people are offline tonight, having fun as always. Well, I'm glad, Lost Cult Music. Thank you. That gets us $2 past our first face camera expansion milestone. So here we go. Please direct your attention down here, because I'm about to say howdy, y'all. Grow Hills here, expanded as I always do in Nashville, Tennessee. D-da-dee-da-dee. And then we also got a tip rolling in from Derek Moulton. Thank you, Derek Moulton, for the 10, who says, for being an excellent reader. I appreciate it. That gets us now 8 away from the next face camera expansion milestone. But yeah, so that was I didn't do a lot of like theater stuff, but I was a lector at my church in middle school and in high school. And so I used to have to go and stand up and read um, 2 passages from the Old Testament in front of hundreds of people. Um, so that's not theater, but that is like I did have experience when I was young at public reading aloud. Bum bum ba bum 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 ba bum 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 ba da 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 da. You know, one thing I didn't check before we started this was, are the ice levels really loud? When I started breaking the ice, does it like overwhelm my voice? Was I ruining the reading? Nobody complained, but I can't. Sometimes y'all are like, Joe, I assumed you were doing that to be extra obnoxious. And I do a lot of things to be extra obnoxious. But hopefully you guys could actually hear what I was reading. So does anyone have any thoughts? This is the first time Ahab has really talked to the crew. And he chose to do so in a very dramatic way. Like, as Ishmael points out, Starbuck was, like, shocked that the captain called the guys down from the mastheads and had the whole crew assemble on the aft deck. That's basically... he basically had an all-hands meeting, which you don't normally do on a ship like this. Because everybody constantly has stuff to do. And you don't want to waste the value of that many people's time. So him busting out the spirits and nailing a Spanish $16 coin to the masthead. This is very dramatic. You know, a lot of people, you know, we talk a lot about brooding Ahab and quiet and isolated Ahab. But he definitely knows how to motivate a large group of people. He knows how to get people on his side. Nelly Sakura says, I could hear you just fine when the ice was breaking, and also I love the storytelling. Hey, I'm so glad. Ice levels maybe a smidge too loud, but not overwhelming the reading. Yeah, I could turn that... I'm going to turn that down just a little bit. Da-da-na-na-na. Da-da-na-na-na-na-da-do. Ken Dreadful says, it's interesting to see how Ahab gets buy-in from the crew members. Pepper Basenji says, just a tiny bit obsessed with Ahab. Lost Colt Music says, charismatic leader, tragic hero type. Yeah. So, I mean, you know, if I don't want to name any particular hermit, because honestly, I don't think that that's helpful in this case. But bear with me for a second. How many of y'all would probably end up going along with something like this? Because I was just thinking about this. And, you know, we have a few hermits on the server who are from Canada, you know? And if one of my pals on the server from Canada got, like, their leg destroyed by a moose, and a bunch of us went up there to visit them, and they were like, hey, I know we said we were just going to hang out in this cabin for a couple weeks, and I appreciate you guys coming up here to cheer me up, but what I really want is for all of us to go hunt the moose that took my leg. I'm going to need you to take turns helping carry me where we're going. You know, I'm going to be hobbling along on my crutch. You might need to help, but I feel like we could do this. I would probably be like, this seems like an unsafe and bad idea. But objectively, if this is just what we're doing now, I'll do my best to make sure that it's as safe as possible and accomplished as quickly as possible. I don't know. People think I'm an enabler. And because if somebody really believes something, I always try to find the safest and best way for them to accomplish it. And people are like, no, Joe, you shouldn't encourage people to quit their jobs to become artists. And I'm like, well, I described a bunch of reasonable ways that they could do that safely and without taking too many risks. And then they're like, well, Joe, that person ignored all of those suggestions you made, only did the quitting their job part, and now they've ruined their life. You're a bad friend. And on some level, I think maybe we just need to accept this about ourselves. Like, if I'm that kind of bad friend, oh, yeah. And then that person, the artist who quit their job, told me later that one of their coworkers was so inspired by them quitting their job to become an artist because of what I told them, that their coworker decided to go, like, join this non-profit that works underground in, like, Saudi Arabia to empower women to get, like, equal rights with men. But they're operating in such a way that she could be killed if she was discovered. And I'm just kind of like, on the one hand, I really like this goal. I think women in Saudi Arabia should have rights. On the other hand, I feel like it's unfair that everyone's blaming me for this. Okay? So, I can say I'm the sort of person that would probably go help them pursue revenge against a moose. But that doesn't make me right to do that. That's just an interesting note about me. Andrew Webb says, I wouldn't call it revenge. I'd say it's better to not let a dangerous moose go around attacking people. Nelly Sakura says, I think I'd help only after the leg healed. No, in this scenario, the leg is gone. It's an Ahab scenario. The leg is gone.
Beowulf says, helping the proper authorities take down a dangerous animal is a public service. A bunch of buddies going out to take down a random animal sounds more like revenge. Well, in a case like this, a lot of times the authorities would straight up say, hey, we've noticed that this dangerous animal is ranging in this area. Any hunters who would like to help are welcome to. I mean, so we wouldn't necessarily be vigilantes. We would be deputies in a scenario like this, possibly. More so than Ahab and his crew. Oriah Thallium says killing the moose wouldn't bring back the leg. But once again, as Andrew Webb said, or was it Andrew Webb? Somebody said, yeah, it was Andrew Webb who says it's better not let a dangerous moose go around attacking people. So, you know, if the authorities have recognized, hey, this animal is unsafe or possibly rabid or unhealthy in some way that's making it aggressive, it needs to be hunted. Oriah Thallium says, fine, I'll help kill the moose. Toxic Glitter says, my general rule is don't set people up for failure. If you know someone won't listen to you in certain ways or will behave in a certain way that will end poorly, even if you say the right things and give the right warning, it's entirely on you for putting people in a situation you knew would end badly. If you don't know that and they ignore your warnings, cautions, etc., yeah, that's on them. Jamie St. Louis says, Law and Order, Special Moose Unit. Bum bum. Welcome, Artem Fluid, raiding with a party of 5. Thank you for joining us tonight. We are here on the HermitCraft server. Uh-oh. Is Asuma in there? I don't see him, but he's probably AFKing somewhere. So, I ran out of food except for these golden apples, which are stupid expensive, so maybe that's not a good use of my... I should probably go get some berries, right? Bump it up. How do we still get so many ender pearls? Whatever, it's fine. I'm not upset anymore. Andrew Webb says, I heard this book is one of the first cosmic horror novels. That's an interesting idea. Defiant Chaos says, wow, that was DMing 101 right there. Which part was Dungeon Mastering 101 right there? I sometimes when people say that, like, the antecedent gets lost. Ken Dreadful says, so bringing this back to Ahab, if you compare what it would take the average person to agree to this animal vengeance quest, it really drives home the fact that either A, there's something deeply wrong with the crew, or B, Ahab is extremely charismatic. So, I will say, you got to keep in mind, though, their job is literally to hunt whales, right? And so, here's the thing, is that a lot of this is just making them pumped up about doing their current job. Because they're not stopping hunting other whales. And in fact, hunting other whales is good practice for when they get this one, right? So... Oriah says, or they're just bored, hardly jesting. That's true. But, like, it's kind of one of those things where there's an angle here of, like, even... So, he's not saying, oh, this is the only whale that you should keep an eye out for. But if you find this whale, you'll get a special reward. This is the whale that I'm out here to get, right? So, like, to some degree,
Man, my brain. I feel like we were supposed to be mining this out over here, and then we got distracted by making our ice tray. But we're also, we do need to finish the ice tray, but we also need to mine this out over here. We have so much to do. Defiant Chaos says, what I meant was don't put your players in a seemingly impossible situation and then expect them to understand exactly what to do. Oh, okay. Oh, so you're responding to Toxic Glitter's comment. That's fair. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. And his name is John Trina. Dun 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 dun. See, we're chopping down a tree. So it's John Trina in this case. I'm very clever. I'm on HermitCraft. Okay. Like, we got a lot to do here. We're having fun. We're knocking things out. Da 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 da. Is that a gold zombie? Yeah, that's cool. And we both fell. So did anybody here watch the latest episode of HermitCraft? Well, I'm asking for feedback on things. I originally was trying to make a 1 hour long episode, but I realized that the missing mobs concept was kind of in conflict with some of the other stuff I wanted to explore in the latest episode, so I ended up splitting them into two, and I feel like that was a lot better. What'd y'all think? Were those two better alone, or should I have tried to fit them in to an hour? Alicia Capisha says, I enjoyed it. Beowulf says, I watched it. That's a fun contrast. Thank you for both. Andrew Webb says, I like more short videos opposed to one long one. Beowulf says, I think it was better split. Soup Life, regarding Moby Dick, says, I love how the writer just goes into detail about whale anatomy and how to sail a ship. Yeah, he's very excited to share this thing with you that he's very excited about. Corona Magna Excited says, I haven't watched it yet, but I will. Mumbo's video is good. Corona, I didn't make Mumbo's video, so I can't claim credit for that, but I'm sure Mumbo would be glad to hear that. Andrew Webb says, I really like the camera work on the falling contest. Thank you. Yeah, that was... I learned a lot about falling and replay mod in my charity video, where we fell past all the names in the tower. And that was a lot. But I was able to get a lot more quickly done. Niles says, half-hour-ish videos are more digestible, in my opinion. Defiant Chaos says, don't try to do a Doc or Rendog length video without the lore. There has to be a point to what you're showing people. Well, that's the thing, is, like, to some degree, it's like, hey, here's a bunch of stuff that happened on HermitCraft lately is something to show people, but, yeah, like, trying to do it that long without a through line. I find the longer I do this, the more important it is to have some sort of through line thematically to the video. And so, like, with this video, we opened and closed with the Cub fan celebration. You know, we start by talking to Cub, and then we close with the fireworks show, you know. But then all the other stuff is stuff that's like happening in between, like while we're waiting for the. It's like Cub needs a lot of time to get this ready, but while he's doing that, we've got other stuff happening on the server, you know. So to some degree, the other stuff not only shows like, hey, here's what life is like on HermitCraft, but also like gives the viewer some distance between the initial planning and the eventual event. How do I feel about winning the falling contest? I was kind of surprised. I accidentally won that. My rockets didn't go. If I had deployed my elytra, I think I would have lost. I was trying to fire rockets with a deployed elytra, but the elytra didn't go off. So it's not like I was super brilliant or anything. Did you guys like that I included the falling contest? Because I know Grian showed that weeks ago, and I'm sure Pearl and Cleo probably already... That was the thing, is like I didn't have time to go check what Pearl and Cleo included in their videos, but I was like, well, I want to show some of the behind the scenes, like while Grian was getting stuff organized, here's how we're goofing around. We don't really know what's going on. Like, I'm sure in Grian's video, this seemed like really organized and intentional, but like from our point of view, it's just like, Grian asked us to come over here. Is this a social experiment? Is he just trying to see how long we'll stand around at build height? We don't know. Niall Heiss says, it was awesome. Loved the breakdown. When you say breakdown, what are you referring to? I don't know if I know what you mean there. Not trying to be... Sometimes I'm trying to be difficult as a joke, but like the breakdown. I don't know what that means in this context. Bo Wolf says, it's interesting to see how the hermits, how different hermits edit the same event in different ways. I'm glad, yeah. That's part of the fun of the server, is we each have kind of different priorities about what we want to show. Niall Heiss says, frame by frame, the study of it, but you did that on stream. Oh, you enjoyed me, like, trying to explain how the replay mod shot was constructed on stream. Okay, yeah. Well, I'm glad. Yeah, that was... A lot of experience goes into working with replay mod effectively. That's something I can genuinely say that I'm proud to have practiced and improved on over time. And looks like we have some opportunities to pick up some blocks here. Leave me alone. Just here to put things in boxes. Bye. Well, Defiant Chaos, thank you, yeah, for coming back and watching my point of view on that. Owen Orwig says, I love the flight camera you set up. Thank you. Jamie St. Louis says, assuming it's intentional that pillagers sound like pirates. Probably. I mean, does Sweden have pirates? Were there Vikings from Sweden? I don't know if there were. I feel like they were more Danish, right? They would join Ahab on his revenge mission. Did anybody think it was interesting that all 3 of the harpooneers had seen the same whale? Does that seem statistically interesting to anybody? Because these 3 harpooneers had not sailed together before either. Beowulf says it was very story convenient. Well, yeah. But, like, to some degree, is that an ill omen? Like, it's kind of one of those things, like, if everybody's heard of somebody, that's either really good or really bad, right? Like, okay, for example, let's say that you lived in a big city, and you were telling a story about a bad Lyft driver you had, and everybody else was like, wait, did they drive this? Did they have this in their mirror? Did they have this kind of hat, right? Like, it's one of those things, like, at a certain point, it's like, oh, I've ridden with that person. That person should not be driving a car, right? Like, that's, like, there's a certain level of, like, uh-oh. Ken Dreadful! Oh, how dare ye, Ken Dreadful. Ken Dreadful in the Twitch chat writes, I don't think Ishmael is a reliable narrator. Perhaps he's embellishing. I 100% agree with you that Ishmael is not a reliable narrator. No, like, Ishmael is not a reliable anything. That's part of why he's in this situation in the first place, right? But I'm not sure, because, like, the thing is, the harpooneers are legitimately well-traveled and experienced. I don't think that the harpooneers being familiar with Moby Dick is the sort of thing that Ishmael would exaggerate. I think that you know, once again, this is fiction, so this is all made up. But, like, in the meta-narrative of how much of Ishmael's story is a lie, I don't think Ishmael's lying to us about this. I think, from the point of view of, this is the sort of thing that Ishmael doesn't need to lie to us about. Pepper Basenji says, if they've whaled the same areas, they might have seen him before. That's the thing, though, is that there are, like, certain whaling grounds that a lot of people visit. And Pepper Basenji says, if the whales had certain migration routes the whalers followed, that might have caused the coincidence, too. Araya Thallium says, unless the harpooneers are lying to fit in. See, if the officers were making statements that I found to be very agreeable, Like, if it was Stub and Flask and Starbuck, I would have said, yeah, I think maybe they're lying. Queequeg, Tashtego, and Dagu have made it clear they don't need to fit in. You know, so this is the advantage of this chapter being so late in the book, right? When I said we're going to talk a little bit about, like, why have this chapter so late? He's already explained the mass standards. He's already explained the officers. He's already explained, hey, welcome, Taco Squirrel, to you. We're talking about Moby Dick, chapters 35 and 36. He's already gone out of his way to say that the harpooneers are the Dr. House of a whaling ship. They can just be jerks and make people run errands for them to be dumb. Like, they can demand more food and do whatever they want, right? They're the bad boys of whaling. They don't need to impress anybody because they already got this job by being independently famous, kind of, for being good at harpooning, which is such a crucial talent for a whaling ship to have, right? So, you know, once again, when we talk about kind of the meta-narrative here, yeah, Ishmael's not a reliable narrator, but, like, he wouldn't need to make up the harpooneers recognizing the whale. And the harpooneers wouldn't need to make it up either, right? Like, it doesn't seem like I feel like a lot of Ishmael's unreliability is like Holden Caulfield unreliability, where he's like, I hate when people stand in other people's light, and they describe themselves standing in other people's light when they're reading like 15 times, right? So I think that it's actually kind of notable that the three guys who are like the rock stars of the crew they're like both surprised and impressed. They're just like, oh, you're going after that whale. I've seen that whale. Ooh, that's a choice. Interesting. The thing is, though, that these guys, they're thrill seekers. They're the top of their talent pool. They're living life on the edge. Ken Dreadful says, I'm trying to think of how to explain. Seems like he's trying to relay some sort of divine providence within his story. Not that he must necessarily be lying by making extreme claims. Similar to his description of Queequeg within the narrative, it could definitely be true, but it would lend credence to how he's framing the story. I don't know, because I don't want to get too far ahead in the story, but I feel like some of Queequeg's actions later in the story reflect him actually being aware of the threat that Moby Dick poses. Beowulf says, plus each of the harpooneers are excited to be the guy who got Moby Dick. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, yeah. It feels to me, and I'm gonna have to get further into the reread, but it feels to me that Queequeg, in the very least, is familiar with Moby Dick. And, like, the speaker, Ishmael, loves talking about how great and special Queequeg is. And any opportunity to make Queequeg extra brilliant looking is something that Ishmael does like. If Ishmael was saying this just to make Queequeg look good, he wouldn't have had the other harpooneers recognize Moby Dick as well. You know what I mean? Like, this could be another, like, my BFF is the best moment, but it's not. Queequeg is actually the third one to chime in. So it's more about harpooner as profession and the individual experience of these three professionals than about Ishmael and Queequeg. I feel that's just my read on it. Alrighty, have a good night, Alicia Capisha. Have a good night, Defiant Chaos. Okay. Well, you know what? We're coming up on the hour here. Normally, these reading streams are about 2 hours, and we are at the 2.5 hour mark. If you enjoyed this at all, I hope you consider tipping. I just invested a lot of money into the studio and travel equipment today, and tips would really make me feel better about that. It's fine. But, yeah. We are currently $8 away from our second face camera expansion milestone. So, yeah, 2.5 hours. This is arguably not a financially successful stream. But creatively, I think I did a really good job reading those chapters. And I'm just going to say that so that y'all, like, I see some people who are like, oh boy, maybe I'm not making good stuff anymore if people aren't, helping me financially. It's like, nope, the world is untethered. I'm really proud of how I read those. I am just going to be happy about that either way. So don't worry about me on that side. But, okay, let's go lay our heads down and dream, put some stuff in there. Wesley Bacon, I'm glad that you enjoyed the reading as well. Okay. Dun 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 dun. La da 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 da. Bum 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 bum. Dee 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 da da na 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 na. La da da na 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 da da. Bum 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 bum. Wah bum 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 bum. Hey, we got a tip rolling in for 5 from Kendra. Thank you, Kendra, for the 5. That is now going to put us only 3 away from the next face camera expansion milestone. Kendra writes, thanks for the Moby Dick stream. Drew Baca says, literally just tuned in, but yay, supporting the art. Drew Baca, there's a reason we didn't do music during this stream. Please go check out the VOD, Drew Baca. I really, really think I nailed it on Chapter 36. Chapter 35 was okay. Chapter 36, I feel like I'm legitimately, super proud of it. So I hope you enjoy it. Thank you for supporting the arts and your faith in me going in blind. So 58, let's see, the first 3 gets us 1 face camera expansion milestone. 23 gets us a second. 43 gets us a third. 53, 58, okay, gets us 5 away from the 4th. So let's do 3 face camera expansion milestones real quick. Here we go. Expand Joe. Do 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 do. Numero dos. Even larger Joe. La da da dee. Numero tres. What if we had an even expanded face? Da 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 da. Alrighty, so thank you very much, Drew Baca, for that. Chloe the Great and Powerful says, howdy, missed the reading tonight, but love to support the Saturday readings. Thank you so much. That is going to get us 2 past our next face camera expansion milestone. It's time to enter the Joust. Bum, 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 bum. Lowering the show opacity now to 90%. At this point, each additional face camera expansion will be accompanied by a corresponding drop in show opacity. Drew Baca says, what did you get for the studio? I would love to show you. I was like, the camera was too small earlier. So, okay. This is a 4 headphone amplifier. So the idea is that I've had the previous studio was set up so we could have myself and 1 in-studio guest, but we couldn't really have an additional audience. Our guest this Monday, Travis Erickson, is bringing in family who have enjoyed watching my videos on YouTube in the past and are excited to see Travis join me on stream. So the idea is that this headphone amplifier will allow individual headphone volume setting for each set of headphones. And I have a whole stack of new ATH M20Xs, which are decent but not expensive. These are kind of in the, like, they're not cheap, but they're not expensive. Like, those are like 2 model levels below but what me and Travis will be wearing. They're good enough that nobody's going to be insulted if they come in here as an audience member on the stream in the studio and it's just like, what is this? Did you get this as Office Max for a 3-year-old, right? Yeah. So I went out and I got that set up. So you can't see it behind me. The studio is not yet set up for multiple people to be the live audience. That's going to be my day tomorrow, is going to be emptying stuff out of this room into my daughter's bedroom. And so this room, I'm just going to basically be hauling stacks of stuff, stacking them in my daughter's bedroom, setting up chairs, getting the new headphones and headphone amplifier set up. I got special cables to connect the headphone amplifier to the Focusrite mixer. It's now the nice thing about this is when we did other in-person events before, like when I played Decked Out live at Tennessee Game Days, the viewers in the room couldn't hear me playing. They could hear me talking, but they couldn't hear like the sounds of the mobs in Decked Out because we didn't have the ability to have like a bunch of people with headphones. So you might say, Joe, well, a 4-person headphone splitter, that's not going to go, a 4-person headphone amplifier, that's not going to go very far. Okay, but the thing is, each of those ports on that thing, because this thing is powered, we can actually have a bunch of Y splitters running out of that and still have it be okay. Does that make sense? So we could scale this up. So if I'm at a small convention and I'm like, okay, guys, we're going to be in this conference room so I can play Decked Out 3 live, you know, I might say I'm only going to have a few pairs of headphones, so bring your own, you know, headphones, not Bluetooth, but like bring your own wired headphones if you want to plug in and be able to hear like Tango describing what's going on, right? That's like, so this is a huge upgrade for my convention gear too. This is not just for in-studio stuff, but having special guest Travis Erickson, the executive director of Child's Play, as my guest on stream on Monday. It's going to be super fun. And this way, if Scar comes over and bothers us, Travis's family sitting in the studio here can hear Scar, right? I feel like that's pretty cool. And that's it's not fun to just watch your dad talk to Joe Hills and not be able to hear Scar, right? That's not cool. You got to hear Scar. So yeah. So anyway, Drew Baca. So yeah, that's what that investment was. This is something I've been planning to do for a long time. Basically, ever since Decked Out 2 at Tennessee Game Days, I was like, we really need to invest in this headphones amplifier thing. But yeah, now it's finally happening. So very excited about that. Okay. So let's see, where are we? We are 5 minutes past the hour. I said we were going to be wrapping up at around the hour. So we're just going to give a few last minutes for any final tips to roll in. Anybody else have any final thoughts, any final questions, any final concerns? Anything you'd like to say before we wrap up the stream? Now is a great time to do it. So I'm very excited. So we have Travis Erickson on Monday as our in-studio guest. And then on July 8th, which is a Monday a few weeks from now, we're going to have call-in guest Joe Mirabello from Terrible Posture Games. The creative director behind Battle Train is going to be calling in and talking to me about Battle Train. So I probably need to go on the Discord and ask people to give me suggested questions or things they'd like to hear him talk about. I should probably make a feedback guests channel. Or feedback interviews. Because I don't necessarily want feedback on the guests. The guests are fine. The question is, did I do a good job of interviewing them? Edward Bentel says, or connect one output to the audio system where you're at. Yeah, so that's the idea, is that the audio system that captures... So, like, I've got, like, a special box that my microphone goes into and my headphones come out of. Like, I've got a sound mixer for travel. And basically, this new headphone splitter amplifier thing, because it's a powered amplifier, can take one of the outputs from that and then split it probably 8 or 16 times. It's got 4 ports on it, but it's powered so we can amplify that through a few splits if we need to. Ken Dreadful says, I've been enjoying the Moby Dick streams a ton. I haven't done much literary analysis since college, so it's nice to work those very neglected muscles talking about whales. Hey, glad to hear it. Yeah, I haven't done a ton of literary analysis either. I need to get on that. La da da da. Da 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 da. Ariathalium says, good night, Joe. Good night, Ariathalium. Yep, it is about time to wrap up here. Taco Squirrel for you says, I haven't read the book yet, so now I feel obligated to get to at least chapter 37 before your next stream. Well, just so you know, there is a playlist of me reading the earlier chapters. If you're curious about that. I'll post that for anybody who wants to catch up. But yeah, you could probably read the book faster than you can listen to me read the book. Depending on your reading speed. But also because, like, those videos are very... There's a lot of downtime in them. Between chapters and among chapters. Okay. So we are wrapping up for the night here. Ba 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 do 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 la da dee dee da. It is my Twitch muted. Let's open this up. Why is it not allowing me to mute the site? Interesting. Is it already muted?
Yeah.
My mute site thing is broken. Let's see. Oh, it's Mustang! We're going to go ahead and we're going to raid Minnesota Pinball, who is currently playing Mustang. Apparently it's Hammond's 40th birthday. So go ahead. Our raid message is going to be, howdy, y'all. Joe Hill's raid here. Happy birthday, Hammond. I played this game at District 82. And... everybody else had, like, orders of magnitudes more points than me. You start this game by picking which Ford Mustang you want to play as. Each Ford Mustang has a different kind of story mode. And I had never played this one before. And so I start the game, and I pick one of the Mustangs. And I do terribly. And one of the other guys who got way more points than me is like, well, hey, man, just so you know, it helps if you pick the right car. And I'm like, I picked the Ford Mustang! I don't know what Ford wants from me. Ah! Anyway, so this is a game that I'm really bad at. I need to learn the difference. Because there's 6 Ford Mustangs in this. I don't know the difference between them. So let's go over there and learn. Until next time, y'all, this is Joe Hills from Nashville, Tennessee. Keep adventuring. Why is this not ending the stream?